Grunge legend and peerless rock vocalist Chris Cornell was found dead in a Detroit hotel room on Wednesday, May 17, night, shortly after Soundgarden performed a concert at the city's Fox Theater. Detroit police confirmed to Billboard they are currently investigating his death as a possible suicide, though the cause of death remains unknown. Cornell was born July 20, 1964, in Seattle, Washington, which became the Fertile Crescent of the grunge rock scene in the 80s. Cornell formed Soundgarden in 1984 with Kim Thayil and Hiro Yamamoto, both of whom he had played with in a Seattle covers band called the Shemps. Predating most of the grunge bands who would come to define the sound for the mainstream, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden were an essential force in establishing the sound of grunge, a melange of sludge metal, punk, distorted guitars, wounded vocals, and lyrics about alienation. His death has come as a huge shock to fans the world over, not least because the band played a gig just hours before his death. The 52-year-old performed at the Rock City venue the Fox Theater, tweeting about his excitement for the show just shortly before the performance. The rocker performed fan favorites Rusty Cage, Spoon Man, and outshined at the sold-out gig, part of their tour of the states which still had 6 dates left. Cornell died suddenly in the hours following the gig, although his death is unexplained. In a statement to the Associated Press, his representative Brian Bunbury said the singer died Wednesday night in Detroit. Bunbury labeled the death sudden and unexpected, with the family set to work closely with the medical examiner to determine the cause of death. Soundgarden split in 1997 and reunited in 2010, their last record was King Animal in 2012. During their 13-year hiatus, Cornell went through a dark period and was admitted to rehab for alcohol addiction. Investigators are looking into whether the singer's sudden and unexpected passing was a result of suicide. Cornell was on tour in Detroit when he died, and was active on social media just hours before reports of his death surfaced. A Seattle native, Cornell began his musical career in the early 1980s, performing in cover bands focused on hard, aggressive music. It was there he would meet his longtime Soundgarden bandmates Hiro Yamamoto and Kim Thayil, forming the group in 1984. A series of well-received albums distributed through the seminal Seattle-based label Sub Pop followed, but it wasn't until the 1991 releases of the multi-artist tribute album Temple of the Dog and Soundgarden's own Bad Motorfinger that Cornell and the group would attract mainstream attention and success. Through Bad Motorfinger and its 1994 follow-up, Super Unknown, the band scored a string hits, outshined Rusty Cage, Spoon Man and Black Hole Sun among them. Behind these successes and Cornell's genuine, 1970s-style rock star charisma and image rarities in the world of grunge, the band became one of the most influential and popular of its ilk. After Soundgarden temporarily disbanded in 1997, Cornell would go on to produce albums and tour as a solo act, form the supergroup Audioslave with Rage Against the Machine guitarist Tom Morello, and embark on diverse assortment of other musical projects with a wide list of collaborators. Soundgarden would reform in 2001. In 2006, he contributed the theme song You Know My Name to the soundtrack of the James Bond film Casino Royale. Throughout his long career, Cornell's multi-octave, cutting voice and dark lyrics were instantly recognizable to 2 generations of fans. Cornell battled and, apparently overcame, dependencies on drugs and alcohol in the 1990s. Along with those of Alice in Chains' Lane Staley, Scott Weiland of the Stone Temple Pilots and, of course, Nirvana's Kurt Cobain, Cornell's death marks the passing of yet another voice and face familiar to those who grew up witnessing the profound changes rock music underwent in the early 1990s both on radio and MTV. Cornell is survived by his wife, Vicky Karayiannis, his daughter Toni, 13, and son Christopher Nicholas, 11. Led Zeppelin singer Jimmy Page led tributes on Thursday to Cornell, calling him on Twitter incredibly talented, incredibly young, incredibly missed. Kiss singer Paul Stanley tweeted he was stunned to hear the death of Chris Cornell, while Aerosmith's Joe Perry called his passing a sad loss of a great talent to the world. Cornell also had an extensive solo career as a singer, guitarist, composer, and lyricist, and worked with various other musicians over 3 decades in the music business.